We are at episode 24.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yep. You're 24th. You're almost halfway through. John Brewer.
That's how old I feel, 24.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's how old you act.
Sounds good, don't it?
So we met because you work for Nissan just like me. You're in training now. I'll kind of give a little bit of a background because I'm going to let you explore those things on your own. You can get to however you want to get to it, but I kind of want to give you a little bit of an introduction on why you're here. We were doing some training tutorials, whatever it was, some training modules to help you with the classes that you teach.
Yeah, well, what it was is the simulators we use to test individuals to see if they have the skills or the desire to actually do the jobs.
Potential production new hires.
Yeah.
So a lot of responsibility. And you liked my work for whatever reason and you wanted some videos, or that's what it was. You wanted some videos and somebody volunteered me.
Yep.
Because I'm primarily just for maintenance, and it was fun working with you. I had a blast.
Great, yeah.
Well, I don't know how many times we got together, but every time we got together, we found our way to talking about leadership and just life and, just philosophies of life.
Sure. Marriage,
and we went into all kinds of things. So when I started the podcast, I told you about it because I always thought of you as a guest. I always thought, I got to get John on here eventually. But I kind of want to, my best guest, I've been waiting. That's not necessarily true. I've been waiting to get better at this before I bring people on, get through all the nerves and stuff. And I think I'm there. I'm kind of over it only took me like 20 episodes to get comfortable doing this. But here we are. We're finally doing it. And I even made a list, which is not like me. I told you this is the first time I've ever done that.
Yeah. I'm interested.
Well, it's nothing complicated. It's some things that you and I had already talked about. It's some things that I'm fascinated with. And it's ironic because the first thing on the list that I want to talk about is leadership. That's something I think about as a philosophy, as to be a better parent, to be a better person, because I don't think of leadership as management. I don't think it's... I think of it as a tremendous amount of responsibility to be in a position of leadership. And we all are. I made a video a long time ago about leadership, and we all are leaders, and we are all led, right? And we're all being led. And to be a good leader requires the ability to be a good follower. And so anyways, I'm starting these modules at work now. Mm-hmm. I'm starting, just really got approval to start doing them, but these leadership videos... Because we're always watching these videos on how to be a better leader. We're taking these tests and what'd you learn from that? And I thought, why are we? These are just people that work for another company telling us we're Nissan. We're one of the largest manufacturers on the planet. And why aren't we the experts? Why don't we know it well enough that we can talk about it? Like, why didn't, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of the idea. I've been thinking about interviewing management. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it's going to be. It may get trashed. But I'm going to try it.
That sounds good.
It's kind of focused on maintenance right now.
Yeah. Well, you kind of hit it in the nail head. And with leadership, you learn leadership before you're a leader. Now, you decide the type of leadership that you would like to gravitate to before you're a leader. Because when you're not a leader and you're a follower, mm-hmm. that's when you're looking at different people and their leadership styles and you're seeing who you prefer to work for, mm-hmm. work with, and emulate their type of leadership. So we're thinking about it whether we realize it or not as a follower.
100%. I'm going to turn this fan back on because you're killing me. It's hotter. Gates of hell in here. So you're right. And I've seen it all too often where someone in a very high position of leadership, we call this management, upper management in a lot of cases, that are just dicks, to be honest, mm-hmm. to a lot of the people beneath them. And I see a lot of potential supervisors, people that are thinking about moving on in towards management, and I think they look at that and say, oh, that's what I've got to do to get ahead. And that's kind of one reason I wanted to talk to you specifically, because you have been what I said is a dick. You were an Army drill sergeant at one time. Is that correct?
Yes, I was.
So I think that takes us full circle. And the reason why I chose you was because I've been around just enough people that you are responsible for as a manager, as a leader. And I seen the level of respect that they had for you, not out of fear, but just out of respect. I think that you're the type of leader that leads with respect by showing respect, but also has the ability to demand respect. You're not going to let yourself get bullied. And I'm always talking about the two types of effective leaders. Effective leaders. I think there's basically two, because the other one's just getting railroaded. He's not really very effective. But the one that leads out of intimidation and tries to fear you into doing your job, it works. Not very effective. It's not very productive, and it's short-term gains, I think. And the other one that has enough self-confidence to look at a person and talk to them calmly when they've messed up. Not freak out and, what are you doing? Like emotional leaders. These are emotional leaders. I respect very stoic leaders, people that aren't subject to their emotions. They have the self-awareness to say, you know what, I'm upset. Let's revisit this. Because, we don't get to choose how we feel. We get to choose whether or not we react to that emotion. And I think there's far too many reactive leaders and not enough emotionally controlled. Now, look, we all mess up. I think that's okay if you do flip out. But I think the good leader, and because I flip out as a parent, in business, and I've flipped out before, and I think the only mistake you make in that is not going back and saying, I think I screwed up there. I don't think that was necessary.
Yeah. Well, you're not thinking rationally at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the key thing is you hit it on it. You know what a watchword is?
A watchword? Words to watch? Keywords? What is
Keywords. So a watchword is something you would use to describe yourself, explain yourself, and it's something that you live by. And you hit it on the nailhead. It's respect. Mm-hmm. It's all about respect. Anybody. It doesn't matter whether it's in leadership, whether it's in life itself. If you respect everyone, then you're going to treat them the right way. You're going to treat them as they are just as good as you are. They count just as much as you do. And you can be together and work together. It doesn't have to mean, you don't have to like every aspect about a person to respect them. Yeah. And if we did that more often, my wife always says, you never meet a stranger. Yeah. I'm not supposed to meet a stranger. Because as soon as you say hello, you're no strangers no more.
My sister and I got in this whole podcast has a few common threads. One of them being respect. And I don't know if we want to go into this because we could spend the entire podcast and the next 6 moons talking about it, because it seems to be hard for people to grasp because I haven't found the way to articulate it in a way that just makes sense. It's something I'm still trying to discover. It is so simple, but simple does not mean easy to explain a lot of times. And when I say respect, like I said, I don't even know if I want to go into it because I think it'd go back and forth, but I think it's about self-respect. Having enough self-respect. Well, I was taught to defend myself. I was taught to stand up for myself. I was not taught to respect myself first, meaning bullies don't happen overnight. Managers don't start bullying you overnight. It's little bitty moments that you let them get away with rolling their eyes, patronizing, condescending. These little things, people are testing your virtue. Is that the word? No, your self-confidence. Whatever it is, your resolve. There you go. And if you don't show them where the edge is, no. If you're not capable of doing that without emotion, if you have to use anger to set someone straight, we glorify that. Oh, he chewed his ass out, right? Oh, he told his boss, but he freaked out. You threaten violence. When it takes you using anger to get your point across, it's not really strength, in my opinion. I used to glorify that. I used to think, I get mad enough, I'll tell them what I really think. And as I get older, I realize, oh no, that's a weakness. I'm using that as a crutch to be able to articulate how I want to be treated. And I can't allow you to speak to me that way. Right? I do believe in if I mess up, tell me. Sure. You know what I mean? I'm self-aware enough to enjoy a good ass chewing because I'll get lazy like anybody. We need to be held accountable. So I'm not saying, I should be respected. No, I'm saying I'm going to respect myself enough to demand that you will respect me.
As I respect you.
Exactly. And it's not my job to respect you. I just do that naturally because I'm a good person. And I think overall, human beings just do that naturally. I think there's only a handful of assholes out there. For the most part, most people like showing people respect. The bad eggs always stand out. The bad apples, we only see the bad examples, but everywhere I go, people are respectful naturally. It feels good to be nice. So I don't see that showing respect is the problem. I think that teaching people how to respect me is the problem. Like if we taught our kids, don't ever let anybody speak to you that way. Don't let me come home and just because I've had a bad day, talk to you like that. You didn't deserve that. You know, and that's hard. That's a whole different shift. Nobody's ever thought this way or taught this. And it's something that I'm like, oh my God, what if I taught my kids at a very young age that they have to have enough self-respect, and it would be a form of self-confidence, and that they just addressed a situation and said, was that necessary? I just asked your dad that question.
We can't do it.
It's
emotional.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And so that's this whole thing I've been working on.
But in the leadership side of the house, though, the thing we forget as leaders is, we are leaders, so we're ultimately responsible for whatever happens or doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, you can delegate authority, but you can't delegate responsibility.
Okay.
All right. So and a lot of people in the leadership side of the house tend to forget that. Just because I ask you to do something, and you go
that
off
was a
to do-
powerful statement. I don't want to go past that. You can delegate authority, but you can't delegate responsibility.
Right.
I don't want to process that. And I'm confident I know what you're saying. I just thought it was like a profound statement. But I'm going to try to analyze that. But if you want to go into a little more detail, I mean,
Sure.
I know the difference between authority and responsibility. And why am I having a hard time?
Because here's the difference. So if I ask you to do something and you go off and you do or you don't do that, whether you do it or not, you're responsible to me. But as far as my overall job, since I'm responsible for that area, the responsibility still falls back on me to ensure it got done.
Yeah.
So whether I follow back up on you to make sure it got done or whatever process that I would use to do that, that's the key. Is as leaders, we can always delegate something to someone.
Yeah.
But as long as we keep it in our minds and our hearts that, hey, we're responsible, even though I've asked that person to do that.
Yeah, I think the way I interpret that is I'm not going to blame them. I may hold them accountable,
Yes.
but it was my fault. I believe in this whole concept that no matter what happens is my fault. But I can hold you accountable. So listen, we didn't meet our expectations. We had an agreement. I had an expectation, and you're not delivering. And if you can't deliver, here's the repercussions. And that's fine. That's healthy. That's boundaries. People in society want
that's
that.
called?
It's called leadership.
It's called coaching.
Coaching. Okay.
So
yeah. That
we
would
as-
be a coach.
We as leaders forget that's our role. That's our major role, is to coach.
Coaching is explaining why. It's not just disciplining. So this is brilliant.
Exactly.
What you just said there is brilliant. Because too many times people hold someone accountable and just say, oh, you screwed up, and you know what? Here's the rules, and there you go. There's your write-up. But a coach, a good leader has that coaching mentality. It's like, hey, listen, I didn't want to do this, obviously, but look, we have responsibilities. We have agreed on things. Yeah. And there's an understanding that I want to let you go and do your thing. I don't want to micromanage, right? So I'm giving you an opportunity to fail, and I like that. And this time you came up short. Let's talk about it. You're like, do you feel good about that? So that's coaching. I like that.
And that's what that's what we need to stay focused on as leaders, that we're trying to, and it doesn't matter whether you're on the very first ladder of leadership, the very first step.
Yeah.
If you're on that very first step, so now you're coaching your leader or your offline person, example at Nissan.
Now, we're talking about in a structured environment.
Right, anywhere.
I think about leadership as kids.
At home too.
Interacting.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, my hand. He's keeping me straight here, blurred out. I think of his leadership. It's you're 100% right. We're all leaders.
So
in that regard, like we're all responsible for someone.
But and the same token, and my guys will tell you that you've talked to, I'm real quick to get on a soapbox. You can say it's because I'm short.
I like that.
Or you could say it's my desire to coach as much as I can and share experiences with each other.
Well, okay, so this is brilliant. We have a responsibility to give back as a productive member of society. I believe. Why are we here? Your purpose. You're looking for purpose. Share what you've learned, right? And practice. Because when you first start sharing what you learn, it comes off as being a know-it-all. Yep. And you start to lose people. Don't blame them. Understand that your delivery is not so good. You know what I mean? It's an art. Yeah. And you just got to keep practicing, and you got to learn to ask more questions.
There's a difference of talking to someone and talking at someone.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to understand. So when it's a I situation, or you need to do this, instead of hey, look, this is what, I've experienced, but this is what we can do.
Yeah.
And a leader, in my opinion, it's you always hear the definition of leadership is the ability to influence people to accomplish a task or a mission, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's true to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, the leadership of someone is determined through the environment they provide for someone.
You're nailing it, boy. I don't want to pass these things up without going to, because I want to jump into what you're saying. So keep going, but if you're going to another thing, let me come back to that, because what you just said was brilliant, and it's overlooked far too often.
I agree. The thing about it is, when we look at leadership styles and we look at everyone out there, if you look at what surrounds that leader, now you're going to get a picture of the type of leader that person is. So if you can provide an environment, I don't think everybody just wants to work. I think we'd all like to be on our own jets, traveling around the world, just visiting things.
We think.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd love it. But the thing about it is, if we can provide an environment where people don't hate to come to that place and to do something, that's half the battle right there.
So I'm so glad you're saying all that. To create an environment means a lot of different things. As a leader, I could say you've accepted the responsibility, right, of to serve the people around you, beneath you. And I don't say beneath like as in, I'm talking about as in authority. You're accepting this role, and it should be something almost like you're serving, but without. I'm not talking about, when I say serving, I'm here to say whatever you need, son. Right? I'm not talking about coddling and babying. I'm saying, you can improve the quality of life for the people that you are responsible for.
Sure. Because
the number one cause of death, stroke, heart attack, and there was recently a video that came out that was talking about your direct point of contact, supervisor, manager, whoever that person is in your chain of command, the direct person that's over you has more influence over your health than your own therapist does. Because whether or not you're coming to work anxious, stressed, hey, how's it going to be tonight? How's it going to be this morning? Am I going to mess up again? Like, I'm never going to live up to this person's standards. Because they may not. Far too often, leaders, managers, I'll call them managers at that point, because there's a big difference between management and leaders. And yeah, maybe they're getting the job done, but are they creating an environment that's actually can be fun? It can be camaraderie. We can have an overall goal. Let's attack that thing together, and creating an environment that is a pleasure to come to work. There's so much to this. It's complicated. Like there's so many levels to this. I don't like just passing over it.
You're not going to just roll into being a great leader.
No, it takes practice.
You learn and you develop. As you continue to be a leader, you see what works for you and what does not. Don't get me wrong. That I've been told I can be extremely blunt. Yeah. In the military, I was always told, what was the word? I didn't have no...
I called you a dick, I think. I'm sorry to use that term.
That's okay. But I can be very blunt sometimes. But you can do that.
Yes.
You can be blunt and be straightforward.
Yes.
But
what was the intent?
Exactly. The key thing is, okay, I'm going to be blunt with you. No, we're not going to do it that way.
Exactly.
I understand where you're coming from, but this is the direction we're going to go.
Yep.
Right, and
nothing wrong with it.
And just nothing wrong with that.
As a matter of fact, it's important to be able to have that ability to be blunt without ill will, negative intent. I want to demean you. Why would you do that? Why would we do it that way? No. That's not good. Listen, I understand you think that's the best. I've thought about it. This is the way we're going. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. And that's just the way the military is. And I appreciate that about the military. And I want to get into that. But, I want to say one more thing about creating an environment. I say this all the time. It's up to us, the ones that are being led, right, to bring it to the attentions of our superiors, right? Mm-hmm. If they're making a mistake, we have to make them aware of that in their leadership. Because I always say, we are the last to know the mistakes we're making until someone that has been affected by it brings it to our attention. Now, I'm really good at saying, listen, this ain't right, to my superiors. I've just always had a knack for that. It's something I've practiced over many, many years. I wasn't good when I was younger, but I learned. Maybe the military taught me that. I don't know what it was, but In the military, you kind of bitch up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a way. But we have to create an environment as a leader, we have to create an environment to where those people feel comfortable saying, hey, listen, I'm not happy with this. Or, hey, listen, I don't really think you should have called me out in that situation. Was that really fair? You know what I mean? Maybe because that leader, that manager at the time, his spouse or her husband or whatever the scenario is, they're having difficulty at home, children, they're stressed out because they are humans and they have the same difficult things trying to pay their taxes, their bills, just like you. And we all have bad days. And when they do mess up, I think you as the lead in that scenario have a responsibility to say, hey man, listen, that wasn't acceptable. You shouldn't be talking about Larry when Larry's not around. Because, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. We should be able to look at my manager and say, hey, you shouldn't talk about Larry and Joe, right? Talking negatively about them, because that happens all the time, and we should be in an environment. We should have an environment to where we can – I create that environment for myself. I just do it. I don't wait around. But I don't know if that makes any sense to you at all.
Well, the problem – well, what I like to think is we look at things in a different manner if we really thought about it. So if we don't explain, communication is another big key. If we don't explain our expectations up front and to the extent that we have a full understanding. So, for example, if a situation is getting away from someone, the first thing I tell them to do, stop everything. Mm-hmm. Stop, take a deep breath, regain control of the situation, and then go from there. Now, once we get together, we'll discuss that. And we may say, okay, you did the right thing. You got control of situations. Now, what we're going to go do forward to fix that? Give them that opportunity. Yeah. Now, the leader, what we sometimes forget is, this is what I want you to do. Step A, B, C, D, E, F. So we're not developing anybody, And a leader, all they are problem solvers. Mm-hmm. That's what we are.
It's our whole job.
So how do we develop problem solving? Mm-hmm. Well, you develop problem solving by this. Hey, this is what we're going to do. This is where we're at. This is where I want to be. And then what you do is you allow that person to navigate from A to M. Yep. Right? And your job is not to tell them every step of what they need to do, but watch them. And as they start gravitating in the wrong direction or navigating in the wrong direction, you guide them back to where you want them. They're developing their problem solving skills by doing that. Mm-hmm. So and that's coaching. Yeah. So if we as leaders remember that our biggest priority is to coach, mm-hmm. then when we're coaching somebody, we're making them a better leader. We're improving the process that they're working for. We're improving their problem-solving abilities, and we're making our job easier, actually.
Absolutely.
And the other part of that is they do good, and that leader gets to go to the next level. Now we've got a bona fide leader to step up in their place and continue on.
Yeah, and look, all these things that we're talking about, these are things that you have learned. These are things that I have learned. And it can what the point of this is to talk to the ones that have a department that is in turmoil. Like they're like nobody's happy. Everybody that comes to work, they're unhappy. And you hear, well, I've got an open door policy. They can come talk to me. I don't know why they're upset, right? Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. They haven't created an environment to where they feel comfortable telling you the truth. Sure. You know what I'm saying? And that's that little thing that I think is constantly overlooked, because people won't threaten to fire you, but they'll do it indirect ways. You know what I'm saying? They just make your life a little harder.
So where does the energy come from for that environment?
Where does the energy come from for that environment? Now, specifically, we're going to say an environment, let's say a shift, right? A crew that's unhappy. You're saying, where does that come from? 100% comes from up to me. It's not managed. It's not dealt with.
Okay. Think of it this way. Yeah. So we as leaders, we come to school. It's just like when your leader that's out online. Let's just use an example here. You've got a leader online, right? The technicians that work with that leader get their energy from that leader.
Yeah, absolutely.
That leader is going to get his energy from his supervisor or her supervisor. All right, so here's the key. When we wake up in the morning, I don't know anybody that wakes up, good God Almighty, look out world, here I come.
I thought you did.
No, we don't.
Okay.
So, but what we do is we get up, we drag ourselves to the bathroom in the morning time, we use it, then we take our shower. If we were to think about it, during the time we take our shower is the time we put ourselves in the mood for that day. And if you take that to work, and I always tell my guys when I want to pick on them, I'm going to come in a bad mood one day just to see what it's like. And if you look at it that way and bring that energy, because what do you, when you come in, you throw your stuff on the desk, you ain't said a word,
And those days are going to happen.
That's the first thing that work group's going to see, though, is they're going to say, "Oh God, here we go today."
Yeah. Okay. Well, I see that like we have those bad days, but if it's consistent, right? That only is a problem. They're like, hey, if it's rare, they'll come to you and be like, John, listen, you okay, buddy?
Yep.
Listen, you seem a little stressed out today, because we care about each other. Because it's not I'm the boss, do what I say. It's a family. We have we are. I see it this way: we are all equal with different responsibilities. You've assumed more responsibility, a position of leadership, therefore you should be compensated for that. Right. But we are still equal in the eyes of God, and respect, and we should care for one another, and that's the type of environment it should be.
Without one another, we're not going to be there.
Exactly. I always, the machine requires a lot of gears. Sometimes the big gears turn in the little gear. Sometimes the little gears got to turn the big gear. It's got to go back and forth, and it's complicated. This whole thing's complicated, and I guess that's why we're still having these conversations. And all of us, as people in management, are still taking management courses and leadership, because if we could maybe we're talking to a 23-year-old manager that thinks he's a leader, right? Mm-hmm. And he's just in complete state of denial, you know what I mean? And maybe we say something that like, oh, you know what? I do that. Ooh.
We learn every day.
Yeah. Too many times I see managers blame their team. Like, they can't get them to do anything. Well, whose fault is that? Yeah. It's yours, 100%.
What are we doing?
Yeah, but they don't say that. It's not what am I doing. It's this guy won't do anything. He shows up late all the time. Why?
Are you addressing this?
Yeah, exactly. Are you letting it slide?
Well, nowadays, so many people wear their emotions on their shoulders, on their sleeves, and people are afraid to address those type of things because no one wants confrontation. Mm-hmm. They just don't want it
until they get mad.
But then it's too late. It's a snowball.
Yeah. Well, when it's bad, it's bad. It's mad, it's bad.
We don't think rational, and we say things we probably shouldn't say, and do things we shouldn't say. But here's the thing about the whole thing. You go right back to the beginning of this. Respect.
That's absolutely it.
Respect would solve so many issues, and if we can do that. I remember one time one guy told me, he says, "You can't treat us like we're in the military." And I looked at him and I said, "I don't." And he goes, "Well, you don't?" I said, "No, because if we were in the military, I'd pull you across that desk and whoop the devil out of you, and then we'd be done with this problem." And of course he got upset, and he goes to HR, and they say, "Did you say that?" I said, "Well, yeah, because you threatened him." I said, "No, he said that I couldn't treat him like the military." And I explained to him, back in the day in the military, which you can't do that stuff nowadays, but back in the day, that's what we would have done. And so that's all I was showing him, a comparison. But that there was a wrong mentality that we had then. So I've had to grow and learn and be that way,
Well, you starting out young in the military ended up being a drill sergeant, and I totally understand the psychology of what it is to be a drill sergeant, and I kind of was prepared for that, and it made sense to me because you're getting all these different people from every walks of life. Some are weak, some are strong, some are hard-headed, arrogant. Like, what do you do with all these different types of personalities? So the goal is strip them all down and then build them back up. I always thought that was the philosophy, and I've always had a lot of respect for the military. And so you, drill sergeant, screaming, yelling, like going from that type. But even in even in basic training, it started off hard, and by the end, I was friends with all of them. It was so much respect. We had earned each other's respect, and now you're in management, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think it was a hard transition for you. I'm sure you learned a tremendous amount from the military to now, and pros and cons to both. Anyways, I was just kind of interested about that. I was wondering what your thoughts are on it.
Well, I'm very proud of the drill sergeant side of the house, and I was real fortunate as a drill sergeant. I was able to get two of my really good friends to be drill sergeants with me, and they were both Rangers. Oh, wow. One was a Ranger typist or administrator type guy, and the other one was a cook Ranger. And
I had no idea that was an option.
And-
But you have an MOS. That was their MOS.
Right,
And then they went on to, okay.
They went on cause
Yeah,
cause
they weren't on a mission typing.
Right. Basic training is basic, you know.
Yes.
So, and that's what we were in, basic training. So I told them, okay, when y'all come here, just wear a basic uniform. Don't wear your tabs and all this other stuff because obviously they're going to be sought after because in basic training you got to teach weapons, you got to teach grenades, you got to teach PT and all that stuff that a lot of the career fields don't do a lot of on a regular basis, right? So they did that. So I got them on with me. Now the difference in my mentality as a drill sergeant, in the old days it was like weed them out, weed them out, weed them out. So my thing was, and we all three talked about this, if we're actually drill sergeants, if we're actually teaching and coaching, then how many can we graduate? Start off with
Build 'em
60 and not lose and end up with 30. Let's start with 60 and end with 60.
Yeah, build them up instead of weed them out.
Right. So, and I didn't understand that until, and I'll tell this little story of a young lady that I had as a drill. She was one of my soldiers, and every day when she would, after it got dark, she would get out of her bed and get under her bed. And I did everything I thought I could at the time to bring her about. And I got to the point where I said, she's just not going to make it, you know. So for some strange reason, instead of just washing her out of basic training, I decided to call home and talk to her parents. And I don't know why I did it. I just did it. And
It's probably eating at you.
well, the mother told me a story about the little girl. And she said that her brother-in-law had been living next to him all their life. And he had been raping his niece all her life. So she's lived with that for years and years and years. So they were wondering why she was the way she was in a shell and this, that, and the other. So once the mother told me that, she goes, I don't know what else to do. She says, this was the last resort. If you send her home, we're going to lose her. So now I'm thinking, okay, all right, let me think about this. Let me regroup. And so I changed the way I dealt with her. I changed the way that all three of us dealt with her. And she turned out to be a super soldier, scored expert with a weapon, and all these kind of things. But that turned us around to saying, we do have an opportunity to be leaders, to be true leaders and have an effect. And, of course, the parents, they come and they see their children that they were children when they left home, and now they're young women and young men. You know, they're like, I can't believe that's my son or daughter. But that one case for us, the three of us, really made us think really twice about how we managed as drill sergeants and everything. So,
Well, you asked that magic word, why?
Yep.
Why is the magic word? It's you wanted to know why, and you considered, and I can see how that seemed like a lost cause, but for some reason that curiosity crept in, and you was like, well, why? And to the point that you called her family. So you didn't probably just change her life, you probably changed generations. You've affected generations of offspring and great-great-great-grandchildren.
well, you do realize that a lot of the yelling and screaming it's not choreographed, but it's planned.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I completely get it.
and I'll give you another example. So we had a point where you get so far in basic training that you're right. Everybody kind of gets used to the environment, not thinking as serious, not really focused. So you have to get that focus back.
Yeah.
So I'll tell them, I'll say, all right, I'm going to go down there. We're going to have a formation. I'm going to find somebody that's got something wrong, and I'm going to just dip into them. All right, so you're screaming at the top of your lungs. Now, as soon as you do that, somebody's going to turn their eyes, and they're supposed to be at the position of attention. As soon as they do, I want the two of you just to jump on that person. Mm-hmm. So we did that one time, and we were just going to town, you know, just wearing them out, you know, and getting their attention again. And this chaplain, a major chaplain, was watching us. And so after it was all over with, we told them to get out of there, do whatever they had to do. We're walking in, and we're talking about it, laughing, you know, this other stuff, you know. Hey, well, I got to talk to you guys. Y'all can't do that. Y'all going to have heart attacks out there. Oh, sir, that was all planned. We knew what we were doing. You know, and that's in basic training. That's what that is. You know, but you learn so much about yourself. You know, and that's the key thing. And that's one of the things where a lot of your military guys are real fortunate because, especially depending on what part of the military you're in, you learn so much about yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, by the time you go to all the little schools.
If you don't constantly resist You know what I mean? And just try to dismiss everything.
Yeah,
You know, you gotta be willing to be open to learning something here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you do that. You know, you go through well, it used to be, you know, PNOC, Primary Non-Commissioned Officer Academy, and then you got the Basic Non-Commissioned Officer Academy, and the Advanced, and then the First Sergeant course, and the Sergeant Major course. So you're always being developed and having that opportunity. That's one of the things that kind of lacks out here in the civilian world is those structured opportunities for growth and development through a structured course or a structured uh, set of courses, you know, and that's one of the things that I like that we're working on. But I think if we had that more often in the civilian field, it would be a lot better. You know?
Well, you know, I'm just trying to start the conversation with these videos is more to create a dialogue between departments, between plants, to find out how there's so many different plants. I think 11 different plants, and you might as well be in 11 different businesses when I go down there. I've had the pleasure of working with so many different people, and it's like, wow, you know, if we could communicate these things, let's share some ideas and have a conversation that we capture, and we can play it over and over. And anyways, this is kind of what I'm thinking about. This dialogue, talking about things. And yeah, I want to tell one quick story. You was talking about somebody cutting their eyes. Very first day of basic training, they have something called shakedown. Some people call it shark attack or whatever it is. But you basically, they're screaming at you, get off a bus. You're in shell shocked. And I was more than prepared for it. It didn't really bother me much. But I was committed to attempting to do everything you needed to do physically. I really wanted that experience. I was a little bit older, you know, a couple years older than most people, I guess. Mm-hmm. And you get delirious out there. You're literally almost hallucinating. And my drill sergeant in Alabama, I cracked my eye. I looked at him walking by. Man, he put that brim of that hat in Alabama. He was this Asian dude. You got an effing problem, Private Carroll? And I said, I don't have no effing problem, drill sergeant. But I would have probably done it had I not been exhausted. But he and I, he made me. It took a little while, but there was some kind of connection right there, a bond that within a couple weeks, I had a tremendous amount of respect for this guy, and by the end of it, we were actually friends because I was actually stationed there after graduating. And anyways, it was a wonderful experience. I don't regret it at all. I've encouraged my youngest. I'd encourage all of them. Hey, I almost feel like basic training should be something like just basic training should be like a civic requirement. Take anyone you want, but to keep your citizenship. Like my cousin is from Finland, born in Finland. To maintain his Finnish citizenship, he had to serve so many years in the military. And that seems maybe a little more extreme, but I just would love everyone to have to be, by the time you're at a certain age, before you can vote, you should go through any form of basic training you want, just to kind of get that out of your system. I think it'd be so good for you, man. I came out, I didn't really think it was going to have a big effect on me, and I came out super proud. Not cocky, not overconfident. I felt good about myself.
I don't think it's really for everybody, to be
Maybe
totally
not.
honest. And the reason why I say that is because that's what makes this country so great, is the freedom that we have to do and make our own choices. You know, and when you start dictating and mandating things, it's just like of course, I went in the military in the 70s, and so it was at the end of the Vietnam era. And, there's so many guys had such a bad taste.
Yeah.
Because they were forced to do something. And we always enjoy things more when we have the choice. That's why everybody loves this country, and want to come to this country because they want that freedom of choice.
So I'm glad you said that too, because I was driving to work recently and I was thinking about our all voluntary military. And we show respect to the military members from service, blah, blah, blah. But it was almost like I almost felt like I was taught to do that because of the people that had served overseas and fought in battles, right? And I thought, because I never had to. I slipped through the cracks and I didn't have to go to Afghanistan for whatever reason. I ended up being a bus driver in Chicago. I drove a big white bus for in the military. I'd haul all the soldiers around on weekend because I was in the National Guard. But it hit me the other day of why we should be thankful for our military service. And I thought it's because they're volunteering. It doesn't have anything to do with going to war, but they're volunteering a spot that if they stopped volunteering, we would be forced You would get called up. We would have a country that forces their members to serve a certain amount of time. And I realized, that's what makes us special. It's not that we volunteer to go fight. It's volunteer to fill that position, because there's positions that need to be filled. And I thought, it's not just about going to war. It's about, serving your community. They're volunteering to keep us from being forced to do it. I say us, hell, I volunteered too, but you get, is that what it makes sense? I'd never really thought about it like that until just recently. I thought, okay, yeah, that's very important. That's why it's special. That's why we should be grateful, because they volunteered to keep it from being a forced military. Yeah. And I thought that was kind of cool.
I actually like that part of this country, and I've been real lucky. I've seen a lot of different groups. I went to the German jump school and stuff like that, and so I've got a chance to experience a lot of different armies. But here's the thing that I like about this part of it is that we have a country that is full of patriots, and that doesn't mean that a person went into the military to be a patriot, because that's not true. Mm-hmm. Because World War II proved that without the entire country, you don't win major battles.
Those people were serving.
Yes, they were building the tanks and building the cannons and all the things that the women did back here that kept our factories going and supporting those guys that were out there. So it's inclusive, and I'm big.
That's patriotic.
I'm into inclusion more than anything, because when you have inclusion, now I was talking to somebody about this today. When you have inclusion, you have everything, because you're including everybody. Mm-hmm. Not just one group here, that group, or whatever, but you're including them, and that's all. That's what the military is about. It's about inclusion, because it takes everybody, and or no one's successful.
Yeah, no, I like it. I see your points, and when I was talking about it's like we're forced to go to school. You know what I mean? We're forced. It's kind of a forced thing to be a productive member of society. I wish civics was forced on us a little bit more, so people understood. I wish basic laws, how to interact in a traffic stop, should be something that should be forced on us as citizens, to know what your rights are, to know how to behave in a traffic stop. Know the difference, what's right and what's wrong, and too many people aren't aware of their rights, and people in authority take advantage of that, and people that don't have any idea that they had a right to refuse. Does that make sense? I just see it's all, I just wish we were more educated. Anyways, the military, I think, is just a really good place to
respect.
I know, but you got to realize that there's people that's coming out of homes that don't have a choice in life to even understand what that means. They're 18 years old and they've lived in an abusive household, molested, physically, mentally, verbally abused, and they get out into society and they can't function.
So we teach respect in schools.
No, I agree, and that's why I agree.
And to me, you can't get around that word.
No, I know.
And because if it just covers whether you're in the classroom, it covers whether you're a productive citizen, whether you're at a manufacturing corporation like we do, whether you're in the military. It doesn't really matter. Respect covers it all, and if we just respect one another. Again, we don't teach it. So if we have respect, maybe you wouldn't have as much turmoil at home sometimes.
No, you're 100% right.
I know where you come from. I come from a very, very poor family, and
poor is not bad. I loved being poor. It taught me to appreciate life.
But they were always able to get the beer they wanted to drink for some reason and stay drunk a lot. So I understand a lot of that. Now there's a lot I don't understand, because obviously I haven't been through everything, but. The key thing is, if we all just focus on respecting one another as human beings and people, if we just taught that at home, at school, in church, I explained to somebody else today too. Well, you got to understand. I said, we've been doing it all our lives, and they, what do you mean? So, religion has always been the keystone of every society. Look here in the United States, you have every religion you can think about. Back in the day, the Pentecostals, the Methodists, the Holiness, the Baptists, all these. And I went to a church, I can't remember what it was. My aunt was in one of her churches, and we go in there, and she just jumps up and starts screaming at the top of her lungs.
So Pentecostal, I think. I'm not calling anybody out here. Talking in tongues?
I was Baptist.
Maybe you didn't want to give a name.
I didn't see it. I've never seen any of that. And then somebody else gets up, and supposedly they were talking in foreign language, but they were translating what that person was saying or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, dude, I ran out that church. My uncle had to get up and catch me because I was staying with them for the summer because they had
you were young.
They had a son that was a single child.
Mm-hmm.
So I was staying with him for the summer to give him some company or whatever. But anyway, the what I'm going to get to is it didn't matter about all those different religions. We still respected each other. You may have been Pentecostal, I may have been Baptist, but I still respect. I may not have enjoyed your religion or appreciated your religion or even liked your religion, but I still respected you as a person.
Yeah.
So we've been doing it all along. All we got to do is respect each other.
I agree, but we don't.
Yes, we don't.
And so the idea is talk about it. Maybe this will inspire somebody to have the answer. And that's where I'm stuck on this self-respect thing. You know, respect yourself first.
Sure.
And but that doesn't mean be a baby out here and I get my way. No, that means it's complicated. But you know what I mean? You have a high degree of self-respect. You're going to get through life a lot better. And you're also going to treat people with more respect, I've noticed. The more you respect yourself, the more you respect people around. And you want to build people up rather than tear people down.
You'll do the right things.
Yeah. Yeah, when you have a high degree of self-confidence, my son described me this way one day. He said,
Sure.
he was, they've called me worse, I'm certain. I used to be a pretty not so good dad. I made a lot of mistakes. I led out of intimidation, not yelling, screaming at my kids or anything like that, but just the way you could look at someone and make them, feel insignificant. Hey, way I was raised, and luckily I started realizing, this ain't good. Like, I don't have to intimidate my kids, browbeat them into getting my way. Like, we can have a communication, and it's taken me the last 15 years to kind of develop that. And I've tried to switch it and try to teach them, hey, listen, you're going to have self-respect. You don't let me get away with that. There's no reason for that. I'm not saying disrespect me. I can handle my own respect. I have enough self-respect to say, what'd you say? You know what I'm saying? So that's when I say self-respect. Don't worry about anybody else. They can take care of themselves. But my son was editing videos for me, and I would deal with upper management CEO. I deal with all different levels of people from the top to the bottom. And when I say the bottom, they could just be a worker. And he said, I noticed something. You treat everyone the same. And I said, well, cool. Because I do. I try to treat everybody with the same amount of respect. And he's like, no. It's not like when someone feels that they're better than you, you'll pull them down. And when someone is nervous, you'll lift them up. And I thought, wow, that's kind of the way he articulated. I thought, what a compliment. Like, wow,
what an observation.
That's good. Yes, what an observation, because he's watching videos. He's seeing me interact with, customers and people that are nervous on camera. And I'm like, no. I'm trying to make them feel good about themselves. No, you can do this. And if you're a dick, I can pull you back down to where we can see eye to eye. I just want to see everybody eye to eye. And I think that's
there's your leadership growing as you grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because we never start out to be the leader we want to be, and in the end, hopefully, and again, you're still developing your leadership all the way through until the day you stop.
Until you're dead. Mm-hmm. You should constantly be growing and being a better version of you until the day you die.
Yep.
And
it's
a huge
hard.
part of it.
Yes, it's very hard sometimes.
Yeah, it's very hard to check yourself and say, am I doing this? Why are they unhappy? Why are my kids unhappy? Are they depressed? Why are the people that I'm responsible for in a bad mood all the time, coming in late, drinking more, having more marital problems? Like, am I doing a good job here? You know what I mean? I can create an environment that could make their lives better. So they go home and they're not stressed out and worried, sick, and they can interact with their children. Like, we are affecting people's relationships with their children. And that's when I say you have an opportunity to serve, and it's a responsibility. And that's the way I look at it. It's so precious, a leadership role.
So going to that, just asking those questions. So how often should you do those questions?
I think our bodies are constantly letting us know. It's letting us know when something's not right. There's an issue. And it's body language.
No. So
what are you saying?
You're saying that, okay, so I see that they're not happy. I see they're this, and I see they're that, and you start asking those questions. So what if we were to take the time every day to have,
talk to me,
1 to 10 questions and say, did I do this today? Did I do that? And here's the thing.
That's good.
Can we be brutally honest with ourselves? Can we look in the mirror and say, I was honest with myself. I did what I could. Mm-hmm. So a year or two ago, I have these old things that I fill out when I get home. did I talk to everybody today?
Okay, so
Yeah,
you've got a checklist for
yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
This
And-
is good.
And so I do that. I've actually shared it at work with some people.
Yeah.
And I do that. And I do that because I want to do the right things. And then if I didn't, I want to correct that.
I want to know more about this.
I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm still growing and learning.
It's parameters to help you remain in check.
Yeah. So those things are important to me.
That's brilliant. Do you know what Stoicism is? The art of Stoicism. It's like an ancient practice, but the way I would describe it, and I know I'm going to botch it, but it's it would be. You could say it's an art of not reacting. It's controlling your emotions, because you can't control your emotions, but you can control what comes out of your mouth while you are emotional. I always say this: emotions are not a time to make logical decisions, with yourself or other people's futures. Happy, sad, mad, angry. I always make the joke. Well, look at happy. People play on your emotions. You buy a timeshare, right? They play it on your emotion. That wasn't a good time. You should have took some time to breathe. Think about this before we agree to something that could be life-changing. Mm-hmm. So leadership, same way. Before you promote somebody, make sure you're kind of thinking logically. You don't feel anything. But I love that. So Stoicism is about preparing yourself for the day. So I feel like you kind of already do it, whether you know it or not. But you're like planning for your day. Like, okay, Stoicism's like planning. The idea is you plan for what could go wrong to kind of like mentally prepare you for battle. Like people use this, Caesar and all these great leaders. They practice Stoicism.
Well, the key here is, if you want to have a team, the only way to have a team is to treat people like they're part of that team.
Yeah.
So let's say you go out to your work group and you're walking and you're doing this, you talk to somebody, had this happen yesterday and this and that, And so, okay, you write that down. So the next day, what I want to do is I want to go back to them and say, hey, how did that turn out? Did everything work out the way you want to? And it's not a long, drawn-out conversation, but it's enough that you understand the position they're in, and how they are that day, and the mental, faculties they have with them that day. And so, again, you respect someone enough to take the time. Now, a lot of times you'll see management. They don't want to look to the left or right. They want to walking down an aisleway or they're going to look straight ahead. Yeah. I'm busy. I'm focused. I'm going where I'm going.
It's a huge complaint.
But what if you took the time and just veered off? Hey, how's it going? Don't stop somebody from working or cause them to have a problem, because you're talking to them. Hey, how's it going? And just smile and just look people. And here's the
thing.
Make
eye contact.
There you go.
Make eye contact and acknowledge their existence.
We don't do that. We're afraid to look at somebody. I tell everybody, if you're timid enough that you feel like you can't look somebody in the eye,
do not take a leadership role.
Look at the forehead.
Oh, well, see.
Look at the forehead.
Why can't people look at someone in the eye, especially when you're in a position of being responsible for somebody's well-being?
It's not the point of that. I think it's the point of you don't know if it offends anybody anymore.
Oh, really? I didn't know that was an issue.
Yeah, we're in an offensive world.
Yeah. I'm still going to do it.
Why? Because we don't talk to people. We talk at people.
I agree. Well, you're right. I love what you just said about all that. I even love that you reminded yourself to follow up. Like as a manager, as a leader, you have parameters that you've set for yourself. Somehow, maybe I don't know where you learn these little techniques, but I thought it was brilliant that because you said how. I said, well, you kind of manage your group and seeing how are they happy. Are we productive, and are they happy? Because you kind of need both. You can't. It's not people over profit. It's those two together in harmony, and so managing and looking and saying, is Joe happy? Is so and so happy? But you have this checklist when you get home. Did I make sure that I checked this off?
You know what the last question is?
You've never told me any of the questions.
Did I kiss my wife? Hello.
Before?
So when I got home, did I kiss my wife and say hello?
So this is another philosophy. Okay, so we should go deeper into this.
Let me tell you how I learned how that works.
Can you talk about anything on the checklist, by the way?
I can. Okay, sure. Cool. Go ahead. Let me tell you how I found out how this works. So when I was a young sergeant in the military, I had this sergeant major in the S3, which is, the planning side of the house, all this kind of stuff, And he was at brigade headquarters. So this sergeant majors are known as old crusty rascals that, wear you out every time you see them, right? Like a bulldog, But this guy would wear me out every day. I mean, I was an operations sergeant at the time. And every day he'd wear me out. And, oh, God, I got so frustrated with it. So I had this captain, and I went to him and said, Captain Montgomery, I said, we're going to have to do something about Sergeant Major. Now, that guy's just wearing me out every day. You know what he told me? He said, because he doesn't feel like you respect him. He said, so this is what you do. He said, every day you go there right before lunch. You know Sergeant Major's always got a dinner somewhere or lunch with somebody, so they got to go to luncheon with somebody. So you go over there 15 to 20 minutes before he's scheduled to leave to go to lunch every day. Hey, Sergeant Major, how's it going? Am I on my rear end about anything? Is there anything I need to do? He said, that's all you do. And make sure he knows you're listening to him. And if he does say something, you address those issues immediately. So I did that. And listen, and that man had never been nice to me the whole time I knew him. After 6 months of working with this guy and frustrated going to Captain Montgomery, within 3 weeks, it was, hey, Sergeant B, how you doing? Are you doing all right today? You know, is there anything I can do for you?
That's called manipulation.
What? No.
And there's nothing wrong with it.
It's recognizing him as a person.
I agree.
Because that's what people need. You know,
I agree.
They need that recognition, and which shows the respect that you have for them. Because I did respect him. He's a sergeant major. He's got tons of experience. But he was just a crotchety guy, I felt like.
Yeah.
And I could not satisfy him. I could not please him. But I took the effort to try to understand him.
Yeah.
You know, of course, now afterwards the conversations went to something else. Hey, Sergeant Major, I got this and this coming up on the schedule. Are we good for that? So instead of just saying, hey, Sergeant Major, how you doing? So then I learned how to answer the questions, and then I knew what questions he was going to ask eventually, so I could be prepared for them when I went there. Hey, Sergeant Major, I got this done, so we're looking good here and there, whatever. So again, it's all about people knowing they're not just a number. They count.
When I say manipulation, I don't mean that in a negative way. I think when you manipulate to take from people, bad. When you manipulate to improve your circumstances, good. You learned a trick, a communications trick, a people's trick. And that's what I say by that. You know, you manipulate dough to make a pizza. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's awesome. You learned a little trick. You learned how to communicate with people to kind of, because people are hard. You got to lure them in. You got to, what do you give them? What's the saying? How do you lead to something? Honey. You know what I mean? Just being nice. Yeah. Being nice, showing them respect. Yeah, it's powerful. You know, I agree. That's how I've gotten everywhere in life is with respect, but then also demanding respect. Right? I don't let nobody bully me, but I show a tremendous amount. I try to.
If you lead with respect, you'll get respect.
Yeah, absolutely right.
You know, and we always hear about leaders setting the example. You know,
there's a difference between respect and being nice.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Different things.
But you know, we always talk about setting examples, set examples. You know, well, you do want to set example, not just in leadership, but just as a good person,
a human. That's it.
And you do that by respecting people. And I can't say that word enough. That's my watchword that I've lived by in the military. And again, I didn't have that until I met a couple of the older fellows that taught me that. And this captain was one. He had been like a first sergeant in Vietnam, and then went to OCS when he came out of that, and ended up being a captain or whether in the regular, in the Army after Vietnam. So he was an older captain than most of them. And that's why I probably had more respect for him than most, I guess, at that point in my career, because I knew that he had been around. But he told me, he says, you know, the key thing here is people have to know that you see them.
Yeah.
You know, it's the key. That's so important, because we look at the uniform, we look at the collar. Back in those days, it was the collar. Now it's the front of the shirt, I guess. But we look at the collar. We didn't look at the person.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what we got to do. We got to take the time to look at the person. That's why I say when you walk down that aisleway, look at the people on the line. Look at the people that are there supporting you, and you're supposed to be supporting them. You know, and let them know that, hey, you recognize them.
So this is great and it's awesome. We've all been told that. Why we're not consistent with it. Sure. I think a little checklist like you have is a good way to remind us constantly, did we do this? Like, you know what I mean? I think the military, the one great thing about the military, it teaches you little tricks and habits like that. You know, it prepares you to have more, let's call it discipline. Mm-hmm. You learn a lot more discipline. And I think you're very disciplined with that. To check your ego, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where's your values? Where is my attention right now? You know, if I'm going to accept this leadership role as a husband, right, as a manager at your employee with Nissan, it's like you're keeping yourself in check, and I think that's really good.
One of the things we have to remember is when we go into leadership, I don't know anybody that their arm was twisted behind their back and said, "You will be a leader."
Yeah.
We step up to those roles.
Mm-hmm.
We ask for those roles. There's an old saying: "Be careful what you ask for; you might get it." And that's the key. So, are we? Does that mean we're necessarily prepared and ready to step off and be a leader? No, it does not. But it means we're willing to step up and learn to be a leader. Because remember, you learn more about a leader as a follower.
Absolutely.
Because they watch a whole lot more than the rest of us do.
I've noticed a lot of good leaders are chosen to serve their community as a mayor, as an alderman. Like, hey, you'd be good for our community, right? Help us lead this. And because you know what I mean? Good leaders are, if they understand the responsibility, you want to be a little apprehensive. You're doing it,
Sure.
you know what I mean, with a big weight. And so I see a lot of people avoid leadership all the time because they understand, oh, this is a big responsibility, and I don't take it lightly.
Well, you mentioned something earlier about the transition from the military to outside civilian life. So, believe it or not, in our example at Nissan, the military is run just like a manufacturing company, a corporation. You have structure, you have rules, and you have a chain of command. And you go through that. Now, the difference I think we have, and because it is a voluntary force, I can say that I learned this the hard way. In the military, if I tell Joe Blow to go do something, by God, it got done.
It's called accountability.
Yeah.
There was accountability in the military.
Out here, I had to learn. Then I used to tell my guys, what's the big F word? Follow up.
Yeah.
You know, and again, that's all a part of
You
understanding.
knew that was going to happen because the accountability was so extreme that the repercussions, and there was a reason why the military's life or death. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we can't afford to not be able to trust you. So I understand there's a different transition when you go into the civilian world. Following up is the trick to that.
Exactly.
Yeah, good.
So, and if you ask any of my supervisors what the big F word is, they're all going to tell you follow up. Again, that's a part of. You can, what is it? You can delegate authority, but you cannot delegate responsibility.
So this conversation we're having here is enlightening to me. You know, it's something leadership. I study a lot of things. Leadership being one, because it's making me a better parent, a friend, coworker. And it's just something grow. Yeah. Well, my goal. This podcast is my goal in life is one goal. I have one mission: to be a better version of me. Every single day. And if I'm focused on me, 100% me, then I'm being a productive member of society, and I'm producing more than I'm consuming. And I think that's the secret to a happy, healthy life, happy kids, happy wife, happy coworkers. And so that's my philosophy. And I said that to say, focus on being a better version of me. Anyway, I don't know how you said something that made me think about that. I don't know how I said it, but whatever. I think it's brilliant. Oh, what I was going to say is that you were recording this conversation, and this is kind of the idea that I had in mind. I don't think it's going to be a set down like this, and I get to talk to every manager at Nissan. I don't think that's going to be a luxury that we can have. But you're in production, totally isolated from management and maintenance, right? I mean, just two different fields. It's almost like we're not even in the same. It's just really weird, but we could learn so much from each other.
Sure.
The tactics are all the same. All these things apply. These tricks, they're tricks, and that's what I call them. I call them tricks. You call it whatever you want. I call them tricks. It's like a trick. This is the trick to life. This is how to improve your life and to improve other people's lives. You're not manipulating for evil or anything. You're improving the quality of life. So, us being able to talk about this and record it, I think. Something you can share with other people, and we can learn, like, oh man, Joe said it was this. Like, I like that. What if we shared these ideas? And I want more transparency and create a conversation about these things. So that's kind of my goal with this.
That'd be kind of fun, and that'd be good.
Yeah, leadership stuff. Maybe we can get, I don't want it to be Nissan maintenance against Nissan. Like, let's learn together. We're all one team, right? Isn't that what our slogan is? One team?
And well, see, that's the part of it, and that's what a lot of guys tell you. One of my things I say is, we're in this together. Yeah, and this is a journey that we're all on.
It doesn't feel like that.
I don't know. I guess I've been real lucky. I mean, my whole life, everywhere I've gone and done, and when things I've done, I've had really, really good people.
Yeah.
And I came to Nissan, and I started off as a technician. I was over 40 years old when I started. My wife even made the statement, she's from here, Nissan. I was retired and coming back to work from here, and she was like, haven't you heard all the horror stories about Nissan? I said, sweetheart, get in the car. So we got in the car and we drove in front of the plant, and I said, look at all them cars out there. It can't be that bad.
Mm-hmm. And it's not.
And she goes, okay, that's great. I want you to do something. I want you to feel the way you want to feel. Don't go into management. Right? And I'm like, why? She says, because you don't know how to manage management. You just spend too much time and you get wrapped up in it. That's just the way you are, and I'll never see you. You won't do your 8 hours. You'll do 10.
She may be right about that.
And she might.
That last part, the latter.
So I said, okay, I'll give that a whirl. Well, I wasn't there very long, and I was so impressed with the management at Nissan.
Yeah.
And remember now, I could have tried to come in in management, because I'd had years of experience in leadership roles. But one of the major things that, I won't say his name, so I don't want to embarrass him, but one of the major things that changed my mind about just staying a technician was, and it's not bad. If that's what you want to do, that's great.
Yeah,
but
it's important.
There was a young man that had to use the restroom, and he had pulled the light to go, and there was nobody there to get it. He was hurting. He had to go. Another supervisor from another area happened to be walking by, and he yells over at him, I've got to go bad. So this supervisor says, well, show me how to do the next 4 or 5 cars. Then you're going to have to go and get back. So this supervisor comes and sits up there and learns the job in 4 or 5 cars. The guy runs off to the bathroom, comes straight back. So then the supervisor goes and gets someone, and they check all the cars that he did. And I just watched that. And I was sitting on the other side of the line doing my job. And I watched that whole episode, and I was like, now that is supervision right there. That's leadership. Mm-hmm. And that's what I like. And right after that, I started putting in for leadership roles out there. But so that, again, yeah, I've been real lucky and had such great surroundings and great people all the way through.
I do believe we work for one of the greatest companies on the planet. I love my job, but I do interact with a lot of people from production to maintenance, and I see overall, I don't look when you get complacent, things start to fall.
Sure.
So we should always be growing to be better versions of ourselves, including the company. So that's why my focus is on this. Yes, it's great. Can it be better? Yes, and we don't lose what's made it great. And so that's why this conversation is so important to me. And there's always room for improvement. And because there is unhappy people there, I hear a lot of people complaining and whatever. What people are going to complain. That's just part of it. But I'm talking about a worldwide problem. What we're talking about is a lack of respect in human nature.
That's right.
Right. And so what we can do is we can make our environment. I say you're not going to change the world, but you can change your surroundings, right? You can inspire the people around you to be better versions of themselves. And if that's what your whole goal in life is to just affect the people around you, then you have been a productive member of society, and here's your gold ticket to move on to the afterlife.
So how do we go about that?
This conversation.
All right. So the other part of that is there's always maybe even it's a small thing, there's always one portion of one thing that you have control over. Mm-hmm. You may not have total control of what goes on a day-to-day basis, but during that day-to-day, somewhere in there you have control to make changes and to make it better. That's where you just take that one little one.
That's how you change the world.
And so that, if we look at it that way, I think, because we feel like, I'm just going to have to go with the flow,
No.
You can't. You got to make sure that when you have that opportunity, you do it.
You're nailing it. Everybody wants to change the world. Like, be the reason why the world is a better place overall. That's missing the whole point. Can you make your bed, right? Or is your life okay? Are you a productive member of society? And then once you are you giving back to your coworkers, to your church, to your whatever communities you're involved in? Are you inspiring the people around you? Like, that's how you make a difference in the world. And if you get that into people's minds, okay, I can't change the whole world, but I can make a difference here.
That's right.
That's it. If everyone thought that way, the whole world would be fixed.
Sure.
So it's about inspiring people to inspire people to be better versions of them. That's it. You can't change anyone. This is what got me started on this morning thing was marriage. Marriage taught me more about life's everyday problems, like the most complicated things that we deal with as a society. Marriage introduced me to those problems because they're all the same problems. It's a relationship between two people. The world's problems are a relationship between two individuals. That's it. And it's a bunch of those two individuals that can't get along. And I was trying to fix my wife. I was like, well, I know what she's doing wrong. I mean, doc, this. So I started going to therapists. Because I could never communicate to her. I'm like, baby, listen, it's not a big deal. It's just don't do this little thing anymore. I was trying to change her constantly. And so I go to this doctor, Dr. Bean. And he listens to me for months. And I wasn't bitching. I was excited. I was thinking, listen, doc, I love my wife. She's incredible. But, boy, that word but. You just completely derailed the entire conversation. It could have been going great. But we say but. You did great, but. So anyways, he listens to me forever. And God, what a patient man. And at the end of it, he goes, what was his terminology? He says, ultimately, he says, you're making a big deal out of nothing. You know, you're making mountains out of molehills. And actually, that's what I said. He's saying, so you're saying there's nothing wrong with her? Nope. Is she loyal? Is she faithful? Does she do it with ill intent? Does she demean you? Does she, you know, she wasn't any of those things. She just didn't put the lid back on the toothpaste, doc. She lets the kids eat in the back seat, doc. You know what I mean? Little things like that, little pet peeves that drove me crazy. And I finally said, oh, God. So what you're saying is, she's faithful. She loves me. And I'm worried about dumb stuff, right? So that was the beginning of saying, okay, well, let's get over that battle. But what it taught me was, I can't change anyone. I can only focus on being a better version of me and hope that inspires the people around me to want to do the same thing. Because the more I try to get you to change, the more in denial you will go. Sure. And you'll double down and say no, because I'm attacking you at that point. And this is something that I'm learning every day, and I'm still practicing, and I fail constantly. I fall on my face constantly, but it's something that we just have to practice.
Well, that's okay.
We just segue into marriage advice. Did you see that?
Yeah, it's okay to fall down.
It's important.
But get back up.
Yeah, man. Failure is only when you give up. You know, that's it.
Yeah. I just run from my wife, so she
Do
can't
you?
hit me. I don't want her to hit me.
I love what you said about did I kiss my wife, and I don't have a list that tells me to do that. And I need to be more disciplined, even when I'm angry with her, even when I'm not happy with her interaction, her previous interaction. Let's say we had our arguments are it's never anything important. It's like, no, this is what it is. No, it's not. And we argue about the argument, and and it's really incredible, our egos and the last word constantly trying to say, but this is what just hear me out one more time. And they say, okay, I hear you, but hear me out one more time. And you're both probably right. If you spend enough time apart thinking about it without freaking out, you're both probably right. Anyways, marriage is, you can solve marriage issues, relationships. You have fixed the world's problems. Yeah. It's hard.
I don't ever think I want to be a marriage counselor. I'm not good at being a marriage counselor. I'm fortunate in everything, and the things I get to do the things I want to do pretty much. Yeah. But again, it's all about just respecting each other, and to me that's important.
And not getting wrapped up over dumb stuff. How you said something, or what did you mean by that? And you're like, who cares? Just swallow it and move on. Wake up tomorrow, kiss her, and everything's okay. And that's something, as much as I learn about psychology and human nature and social engineering and all these things, I have learned how to interact with human beings. Like, I've evolved in that area. I'm learning how to communicate. I'm a better communicator. I still talk too much. I have a soapbox too. Yeah.
But I'm one of those guys that I get, especially if I'm excited about something, I get real red.
Yeah. Oh, my blood pressure goes up.
Dude, my whole face will get red.
The reason why this light is red, is pointing towards the camera, is to cover up my blood pressure. This is literally the reason why all this is red, and I got this white because I need the contrast. But the reason why it's on this side is to hide my blood pressure, because I do get excited and shit, my ears would turn red.
Oh God, I get red. And of course, the supervisors I've worked with and everything, they're like, oh God, here he goes. you know, again, you can still be firm and you can still get excited and be emotional, because here's the thing: if you're not emotional about what you're doing, do you really need to be there? Because if you don't really care about what you're doing, you're never going to be satisfied and you're not going to be happy. And I refuse to do anything I'm not happy. Yeah. I don't enjoy doing it.
I'm the same way. It doesn't matter how much money it pays. If I'm not excited about it when I do it, I'm not doing it. I'll go find something else.
That's it.
That's important. Yeah. Man, this is really good stuff.
Did we get all your questions?
No, I don't even know if we answered any asking questions. I think I don't even know what all I've written down here. I think we scratched the surface. Like you have to talk about these things over and over and you find new ways of describing it. And that's really the hard part is you may have reached 5 people and 500 people may hear it. But if you explain it another time, another way, like you may have reached 5 more. You're saying the same things over and over and over, but until it relates, until you find a way to make it relatable and it connects. And that's the point of this. I'm learning every time I do one of these. Golly, I learn about the shit that's coming out of my mouth. I'm like, oh, yeah, this was a good idea. I'm learning from my guests.
Well, you can't say the same things over and over because society changes. And our verbiage changes, and the meanings of words change. Good gracious,
that's the problem right now.
And so you have to continue to say the same things, but you have to reinvent them as you're saying them, so they are catchy and and especially nowadays where we're so into ourselves sometimes and our nightlife and our social lives. And I mean, Facebook is just blowing up. I've got a Facebook account that my daughter set up years ago, but other than that, I'm very seldom on it. Now I might say something about somebody's birthday or something in the military or something like that. But as far as getting on there and talking and sharing my personal life, I don't do that. And so, but to the point of that is, we got to keep reinventing what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Because society changes and the world changes. Mm-hmm. And if we're afraid of that, and I was
afraid of change, resistant to change.
Oh, Lord. Dude, I shouldn't say this because I'm probably going to get in trouble at work. But I didn't even know how to deal with a computer until I got promoted to a supervisor. I had never even turned a computer on. Yeah. And so, of course, they don't want to know my computer skills. Yeah. But luckily there was only 2 shifts at the time, and at nighttime I would go I didn't even own a computer. I'd go in there at night with a Microsoft Word book and sit there and learn.
You learned it old school.
I didn't have a choice because I didn't know anything about computers.
There's plenty of people around you. You're just afraid to ask.
So, I didn't want anybody to know.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You're too afraid to ask.
So, and like surfing the net, Johnny don't do it. If I want to order something, I go to the boss and say, hey, can you order this for me? Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. You mean you're a lot alike in that way. So. I don't have Facebook or I don't have any apps on my phone. And I'm actually thinking about getting rid of that phone and going to a flip phone because I don't like instant access. I don't think it's healthy anymore. I have a computer at home. I can wait till I get home to get on Facebook. I don't need to do it at work or when I'm at a restaurant. Like I noticed, I'm sitting there waiting on my order and I hate being on my phone. So I've deleted all the apps, and I did that about 3 or 4 months ago, and I realized I never look at Facebook. Like I only do it now when I feel like, okay, I need to, there's a reason, but it's not to go see what other people are doing. Yeah. It became really unhealthy. Too much voice time. Luckily, my kids aren't on any of the apps, thank goodness. But I'm actually wanting a flip phone.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't know if I can manage. I don't know if I could find my way around Murfreesboro. Get lost, getting out of my neighborhood.
I had to use maps to get to your house today.
Yeah, I know. It's
convenient.
It is convenient. I just hate relying on it.
Yes.
I miss the days of pulling in. My phone had broke a few years ago, and I'm in the wrong town. I had no phone. And I'm just driving from gas station to gas station asking for directions. And they looked at me like I was crazy because nobody asked for it. But it felt good communicating with a person and saying, hey, I'm looking for such and such. And back in the day, you gave directions. A big tree was a good landmark. You know what I mean? It wasn't really road so much as the red barn. And there's a hayfield you're going to go past. And I realized, oh, man, I miss the 80s.
Shoot.
Too.
The
The 90s.
My wife used to get so frustrated with me because, before the phones and everything, I'd look at a map, and shoot, I'm a GI, I'm a soldier.
Yeah.
I jumped out of airplanes for a living and navigated through the woods. I'm good,
Yeah.
And I would get somewhere, and of course I'd be off track, but my ego wouldn't let me ask nobody for that. So we would end up driving a mile and a half out of the direction we needed to go to get where we needed to be, and she'd get so frustrated at me. I couldn't.
Well, there's a psychological reason for that. It's man's instinct to know direction, to hunt, to provide for his family, to get to the next village. I mean, it was a life skill, and it's in our DNA to not lose that. If women wonder why men want to figure it out for themselves, it's important because it's like being connected to our Neanderthal, you know what I mean? Our primitive, it's a primitive instinct that we might not want to lose touch with.
No.
I took my kid to this place called, I'm not going to tell the place, I'm going to keep that quiet, but it was a reserve where they hunt animals. It was huge. We were just riding around and stopped and found a paper map. And look, this kid was in heaven. He's 12. Landon's 12, right?
Yeah, he turns up in
Okay. So he figures this map out, and we learn it together, and I show him, and oh man, he enjoyed that way much more than this big. I got this big GPS. We just turn that thing off. Let's follow the map. Let's look for these landmarks. And what it does is you remember, you pay attention, you notice more wildlife, you get connected.
Visual stimulation.
Yeah, it's really healthy, and it made the whole day just following that map.
Sure.
Man. Brendan, I'm going to say this and we can shut this thing off. He was talking about respect being the most important thing. What do you think 90% of our conversations are about?
respect.
It's everything. It's everything.
Good.
It all goes back to that.
It's what our
a
family's
lack
based
of
on.
respect. Yeah, our in fundamental, like if you want to ask why, like if you want to know what the 5 why analysis, you say a leader is a problem solver. It's what maintenance does for a living. We solve problems. Yep. So my brain wants to find out why, and I got to, it's a lack of respect. Why? Parents, lack of respect for the you know what I mean? It was just, it went back to birth. I was like, oh my gosh. It literally went to that. Now, how do you change it? Talk about it.
That's right.
Change the 9 people that we know. And maybe that influences 2 of them to share that with their kids. And we don't make a big dent. You know, you don't have to. Somebody said today, he said, this is a big ship to turn. I thought, we don't have to turn it. You're just going to nudge it. Just a little bit. And another person will nudge it. Another person will nudge it. And it's a series of people sharing this responsibility. We don't have to do it all by ourselves.
Next thing you know, you have a team.
You're right. John Brewer, my man. I hope you enjoyed yourself, buddy.
A lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Was this what you expected?
Actually, yeah. I mean, I had good conversations. I expected it to be you'd have a list of things to go down.
And you know what? It's funny.
Yes,
I didn't. I had one.
Well,
yeah. Look, man. How many times am I going to get to sit down? It don't matter what I think and the experiences that I have. I want to know what you think. I want you to refine what I already believe and what I already think and say, I need to. Maybe I'm not doing right here. Maybe I've got this wrong. You know what I mean? To challenge my way of thought.
Once we realize we're not perfect, and we're still growing, and we can make things better.
Yeah.
Then we're good. And again, that's the reason why I felt like I got to the point at one time where I didn't really look at the surroundings. I was going through the surroundings.
Yeah.
I wasn't a part of it. So I wanted to find a way to make myself slow down and ensure I'm doing the right things. And so that's why I came up with a checklist.
Well, I would like to re-invite you on here because we covered a very ambiguous, broad philosophy on life. Now, maybe we can talk and be like, hey, let's narrow this down to some tricks. I always tell everybody, life is a magic show. And it's full of these magic tricks, right? So we can talk about leadership and life and love and respect and say, okay, here's a trick that I learned. It requires discipline, and I have to check these things off every day. I have to follow up. Let's talk about these things a little bit more, maybe go into more detail, and maybe that's really how you make a difference.
Sure.
Man, I really enjoyed myself. Thank you so much. Hey, we can do that. Such a pleasure. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.